Um, Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. I'm Gwen Robinson, Vice President of the club and Editor-at-Large of Nikkei Asia. And today, as you all know, is a special day, International Women's Day. And we're all really pleased that we could launch this comprehensive report on the situation facing women in Myanmar media on this particular day. It wasn't actually intended to be timed for that. It fortuitously was ready shortly before IWD, so we thought, what a good convergence of factors to launch this. As we all know, I think the situation facing all media in Myanmar is dire, risky, distressing, and we've heard, I think you all are very familiar with the severe situation that all media have faced. There are, particularly beyond that, certain key issues that face women in Myanmar media, which you're going to hear about today. Before I turn to the panelists, I just want to remind that we've got quite a few events coming up. They're on our website and Facebook. But in particular, next week on Monday, March 11th, we've got a very good discussion marking 20 years since the disappearance of Deep South activist Somchai Neelapajit with a photo exhibition. And I think for those not familiar with the case, you might want to read about that. He disappeared and nothing has ever turned up about his disappearance, surprisingly. And then we've got a gathering of Democrats abroad next week to discuss America's most important election. So have a look at the website. There'll be that and other events. And we'll bring you a couple of other big Myanmar-related events shortly in the coming couple of weeks, including a night about short documentaries on Myanmar refugees and IDPs early April. So watch for that. To turn to the discussion at hand, our report launch and discussion on challenges and triumphs of Myanmar's women in media. I'd just like to introduce our panel today. Kuntam, is it possible to bring on our online? It's a very big panel. We usually try and keep a rule of 5 panelists only, but because it's International Women's Day and we've got so many great women journalists around in Thailand and quite a few involved in producing this report, we are having an unusually large number. Some can only stay for a short time. So the speaking order reflects some constraints on some of our speakers. So I'd first like to introduce on screen Kuntam. Can we bring on our panelists via Zoom? Okay. That's me. I think you know who I am. And then we will move to never mind. This is Nanpo Gay, who was recently elected chairman of the newly formed Independent Press Council of Myanmar and is chief editor of Karen Information Centre, and is a driving force, I think, in both for Myanmar media, ethnic media, and women in media. Next to her is Tinza Ong, who is founder and secretary of Myanmar Women in Media, which was one of the few organisations inside Myanmar representing and really advocating on behalf of women journalists. And then below that is Sumyat Wai, editor-in-charge of Tanwin Ket, which is one of the largest independent media with online and also daily broadcasts. She is also Deputy Secretary of the new IPCM. So thanks for joining us all. And I'd just like to introduce our panel in-house here. On my immediate right is Shun Naing, Senior Correspondent Myanmar for Reuters, and a well-known name to all of us. And next to her is Kim Thanda, Southeast Asia Director of One IFRA, Women in News. She's going to tell you a little bit more about what that organisation does. Next to her is Yuka Wai, Research Director of the Exile Hub. And finally, next to her is Annie Zaman, Managing Director of the Exile Hub. And they're going to tell you a bit about what the hub does in Thailand. So first, I'd like to turn to Nunpor Gay for a few opening remarks. So Nunpor Gay, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Happy International Women's Day today. So I'm very, very proud of to join this event that is invited urgently by Guan Robinson this morning. So it is a little, how to say, the time is not enough for me, but I will try my best in this event. So according to the media platform in Myanmar, so there are many female journalists in our community and in our country, but in the leading role, it is not the percentage is not much, but we could proud any of the ethnic areas and the national level. There are many women journalists in Myanmar. So not only the media houses, but also the media network, like individual networking groups or the networking by the media house. We have too many media network. It's also include the women groups. So, but it's not so easy to work the media operation because the journalists should alert all the time, not like other organization or other job. So it's how to say a lot of stress and a lot of workload for the journalist. So it's include the women. So the women is my experience, because I was starting in Exile Media as a female journalist, as a reporter, and then try the best, but it's not easy. Any of our community not support women to participate in the media field because they understand their stereotype is, how to say, fit and discriminate to the women. So the women should stay in the home. It's not, how to say, not duty to go around the community or the field trip. So it's not easy to work in the media field as a woman. So we need the family support to understand and to respect our media jobs. But it's not easy. But we have a strong commitment. We need to have strong commitment and strong self-confidence. That's why we could work so many years in the media field. This is very important. That is why I also would like to encourage to the women, not only in Burma, but also the neighbor countries, to work as a journalist, because we give information, reliable and accurate information to the community. So we work for the community, not only for us. This is not a benefit to, the information. So we give us information service for the community and the people. That is why sometimes we need to promote the women voice in the community, because most of the spokespersons are men, not women. So we need to promote as a media. So we need to promote the women voice, and also who should be done for the women to promote the women voice is female journalist, women journalist, or the editor. So we would like to encourage or promote in the media field that in the decision level in every media houses, it should be involve the women, because the editorial policy should be include the women participation and women leadership roles. So according to my experience, I'm working in the border since 2000. it's not easy. I left from my home. I left from my family. So nobody support me in my relatives. But I I trust my people. So working with the community in the border area. So and at the same times, I'm also trying to get capacity about the media by the training and also working with the community-based organization. It's very encouraged to me. That is why I work with the current ethnic media until now as a chief editor. So not only me, we have other ethnic media and other local media. They have women editors. So this is very proud for all of us. So another thing is that not only in the media house, but also in the network. So we have ethnic media network called Burma News International. So this is one of the ethnic media network. And we just found the Independent Press Council Myanmar in December 2023. Why we should found this council? Because after the military coup in our country, Burma, there are no representatives for the ethnic, include the ethnic media and nationalized media. For the independent media represent no media press council represented by the independent media. That is why we initiated and discussed with each of the media houses and also individual journalists who are in the liberation area and the flee. They move to the border. We discussed by online or in person. So they agreed that we should found the Independent Press Council Myanmar. That is why we arranged two conferences to found this. So in 2023 December, we already found it is not too long, might be over around 3 months. But we stand for our value is independent media, not the propaganda. That is why we in our constitution, Independent Press Council, Myanmar constitution, it's at least 1/3 of women participation and women leadership in our constitution. So that is why I would like to share and encourage to all of the women who are in the media field or in the community. We have together here. So the theme of the International Women's Day is Inspire Inclusion. So we need to be together for the future. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nampo Gay, of the IPCM. She was just telling me that about a third of their members of the new Press Council of Myanmar are women, which is a good number overall. Anyway, thank you again, and we'll now turn to Annie Zaman as Director, Managing Director of the Exile Hub. So Annie, over to you. And we can switch back to a group view, Kuntam, on the screen or whatever. Thank you. Annie.
Hi, thank you, Gwen, and thank you everyone for your participation.
I think you have to get
closer.
I have
to move or, yeah, okay. Thank you, Gwen, and thank you everyone for joining us on this special day on 8th of March. And I think it's very important to launch this report, which our colleagues have prepared in the last 1.5 years. Not many people understand that why it's so important to bring in women, because from Myanmar, or if I just talk about Asia, from Pakistan to Thailand, what we see is repressive regimes when it comes to press freedom or freedom of expression. And when it comes to women, nobody wants to talk about it either. And particularly in conflict areas, because I have been a working journalist for 15 years, and I know that it sounds very fancy to cover conflict and to work in conflict countries, and tend to be, when now I talk with Gen Z young women journalists as well, they don't want to be identified as women journalists, they would want to say we are journalists as well. We are conflict reporters or war reporters. And we tend to forget, when Yuka will explain more about it, when we go in the field and see there are different challenges faced by women journalists, be it me, be it her, or anyone else. We don't want to, maybe we are too ashamed by the patriarchal societies. We don't want to talk about it when we go to, for reporting, things we need. Or, for example, the needs we have. Or, for example, this, I am like the last, I'm not a woke new wave of second wave of feminist. I still call myself the old one. I think it's very challenging for us to balance our profession. To be journalists as well, or to be mothers or sisters or like homemakers. We stopped calling housewives now, you know, we call it homemakers, to make it more dignified. But coming back to the, you know, this 8th March and the struggle of women, I think we need to keep remembering that we have to accept that women journalists have special needs, they have special issues, there's harassment, there's gender pay gap, and these are like just, I'm labeling very simple things which we face on every day. If we just look around and ask around, how many women are covering right now conflict in Myanmar? How many women are allowed by their, you know, they could be, they are breaking the glass ceiling. They're given, you know, finally, I'm very happy for it that we are given a place on the table, but are we the decision makers still yet? No. There are so many other issues which comes being, issues or challenges, I think challenges is a better word, that there's so many challenges still we are facing on every day, and this report signifies, you know, it goes so deep, and they will explain, I think Yuka will better explain, what were the hardships, even when you reach out to women journalists, how do they feel, what are their security concerns, do they understand what is a gender pay gap, do they understand that when do they get discriminated when another person is given a chance to speak about it. I think, you know, being in this profession for so long, some things we have, like when I started my career as a woman journalist, it was so okay to be, you know, given a male journalist priority. I still remember back in 2006, I lined up an interview with the then in exile Prime Minister of Pakistan, Muhammad Nawaz Sharif, and then my editor came to me, a British person, and he came to me, you cannot do that interview, and it was given to a male journalist. Then again I lined up an interview with Benazir Bhutto, and that time I stood up. Maybe it was Benazir Bhutto's charm, I wanted to interview her. I was 26 years old and I was like, no, I want to, I lined it up. So women journalists even have to fight over that. I lined up the interview, I talked to her press secretary, I did everything. So our job is supposed to be line up things, and a man would walk in and be the star. So I'll leave it here.
Well, thanks, Annie. But hopefully we can now hear a little more about the Exile Hub and your research. So I'd like to hand over to you, Yuka.
Sure. Thanks, guys. A small sort of question, Gwen. How do I change slides? Do I press the space bar on the laptop? Yes,
That's a really good question.
Yes, correct.
Yes,
Thank you.
clearly
I
yes.
for you. Thank you.
Okay.
So the Exile Hub was formed
Make sure you talk into the mic.
Okay. So the Exile Hub was formed at late February 2021 in response to the coup that happened in Myanmar, as all of us are very painfully aware. And since then, we've been working on supporting journalists, human rights defenders, media workers in exile, and helping people from inside the country from exile as well. So we have a team of about like 9 people now, growing, who have been working on supporting media workers, human rights defenders and journalists in housing, safety and security, psychosocial support, and a few other things. And we started this research because this was something that came up again and again with the women journalists that we were working with and in our community, where like they would speak about problems that they were going through, issues that they were facing. You know, to date, there are still hundreds of women journalists working from exile and from inside the country, and their needs are oftentimes very much ignored. when we bring up these issues to their media houses, to other organizations, a lot of times people say, oh, well, this is just hearsay, this is just an anecdote, we don't know if there's any evidence for any of these things that are happening. And so we decided to compile this research because it's like, well, we don't want the issues that women are facing to be anecdotes anymore. We want them to have figures. We want this to be numerical. We want to understand what it is that women journalists are going through, and to understand like how we can actually contribute. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the reason we started this research was to gather evidence on what the conditions are for women journalists. A lot of them are working under extraordinary circumstances, and since the coup, there's been an exodus of women journalists from the field because of the risks, the dangers, etc., but also primarily because there's a shrinking space for women in the media. In the media community. A lot of the things that used to matter, like gender equality, like having a fair and equitable workplace, these kind of things fall by the wayside when media houses are in crisis, when the country is in conflict. As you know, media reporting in countries where there is war and conflict becomes more and more masculine and more male, where women's stories and concerns get pushed to the wayside, both in reporting and in the newsrooms. So we wanted this research also to lead to concrete action. We did not want to have a paper out there floating around being cited academically by someone 20 years down the line. We want this research to actually make a difference. And so this is also why we chose the research methodology that we did. So we began the methodology with by using practices of community-based participatory action research. So that means that we were working with women journalists all the way from the inception phase all the way through to the finalization of the report. A lot of the co-authors and co-researchers of the research are women journalists who sat with us, helped us design the surveys, participated in focus group discussions, etc., from the very beginning through the end. And we started out with desk research, which was just a review of existing research, focus group discussions. We did a survey and interviews with media houses, with people who work in the media space, and with support organizations that help journalists. And also, if you guys, you don't have to take notes or anything. All of this will be available. We have a QR code at the end of the slides. You can download the research paper from that. Yeah,
sorry, I should just say we've printed it out as well, so it's at the reception. If you want to scan the QR code on the way out, you can download this report.
Cool. So we began this research with a series of focus group discussions in December 2022. So it's been a long time coming, and this type of research that we're doing is really slow. If we want to have participatory research, you can't just go in and ask questions. You have to have involvement of people from the community, from every aspect of the research. And so it took ages to get this done, but we're glad we did it this way because, yeah, it was a lot more participatory. So the focus group discussions had 25 participants across 4 different focus groups. We had women journalists in Chiang Mai and Mae Sot in 2 different sessions. So these were done in sort of like, it was actually quite difficult to coordinate the meetings in Mae Sot. A lot of the women, and in Chiang Mai actually, a lot of the women journalists were undocumented. They didn't have the right papers. We had to coordinate like transportation for them, making sure everyone was safe throughout the entirety of this research. We had 2 more sessions in Chiang Mai, one with experts specializing in journalist safety, and one with editors-in-chief and people who were sort of like running these media houses to get an understanding of what their concerns were and what their difficulties were in providing support and help to women journalists. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't just asking journalists what was going on, we're also asking people who work directly with them about what's happening. And we interviewed all of these organizations, DVB, the Irrawaddy, Frontier, Myanmar Now, Mizima, Internews, Deutsche Welle Academy, IMS, BNI, and Myanmar Women in Media. So half of them are media houses. The other half are support organizations that provide help to journalists and media. And we surveyed 79 women journalists across 32 different media organizations. So collecting the survey was a little bit tricky. We had 3 journalists volunteer volunteer women journalists who went out in the field to give out these the surveys to women journalists, either in person or online, accompanied, and helping them fill out the survey, answering questions as they needed, clarifications as they needed. So it wasn't like a survey that we just blasted out to all however many women we knew. It was kind of like a snowball method where we went with the journalists who then reached out to their immediate community, and then they would reach out to their immediate community. We found that this helped us develop better trust and have better understanding with the women that we were working with, so that they would be more likely to provide honest answers. So who were they? Well, the journalists were ranged from founders and MDs to journalists, like normal journalists and freelancers. We had people who were at the top and the bottom of media organizations. Average age of about 30 years old, half married, and over a quarter reported having children. About 60% were employed full-time, 27% employed part-time, and 12% were unemployed at the time of responding to the survey. So that an unemployment number is quite high, but that's also to be expected, as during the time the survey and the research was being conducted, a lot of media houses had to let people go. There was a huge shifts in funding and in support for media organizations, which led to people being put in very difficult situations in a short period of time. Over half the women respondents were in Tak province, which is the province that Mae Sot is in, and 40% in Chiang Mai, the rest in Mae Hong Son and in Bangkok. So we wanted to ask these women journalists what they were actually going through and what were the difficulties they were facing on a day-to-day basis. So relocation was the first thing that was brought up. The cost of relocation from Myanmar to Thailand is really high, but nearly half of the journalists that we surveyed mentioned that they did not receive any kind of assistance when they were on the move. So this is very interesting because, you know, when the coup happened, there were media development organizations and support organizations, embassies that were providing help and providing funds to journalists to help them evacuate. But then when we actually went on the ground to ask who received support, we found that nearly half didn't. And so we wanted to find out, like, why is that happening? You know, how did we miss half the women out there who were reporting? So this is a graph showing when these women arrived into Thailand. We saw that 26% of them arrived in 2021, half arrived throughout 2022, and 15 arrived in 2023, and all of them, of course, finding themselves unable to return home. So the spikes in the dates of arrival coincide with specific large-scale conflicts that were happening in Myanmar at the time, when there was an attack on a border town, Lekegod, that was airstriked. There was a huge spike in the number of journalists that came through when a KIA command was striked as well. A huge number of journalists came through during those times. So when we look at the chart, we can see that, like, when the date of arrival of journalists into Thailand coincides with specific military actions being done in Myanmar. And we asked women journalists how much it costs to move. On average, it costs about 25,000 Thai baht to move from Myanmar to Thailand. So we have some people, you know, were luckier in that it cost them less than 10,000 baht. For others, there were a few who reported paying over 60,000 baht to move into Thailand. Some of that discrepancy is because some people have families, like if you bring your husband or your parents or your children, that brings up the cost of relocation considerably. So this variability depends on who they had to relocate with, whether they moved alone, whether they moved with others, where they were moving from. If they were moving, you know, for example, from Sagaing into Mae Sot, it costs a lot more than, say, if they were in Pa'an already. And this is the main sort of like piece of data from this section is 49.4% of respondents did not receive any aid for relocation, and they were forced to use their own finances to cover the cost. So this means that, can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so those who did receive relocation assistance, most of them got got it from support organizations. Notably, one participant mentioned that they had to resort to taking out a government loan of 800,000 Myanmar kyat in Myanmar to finance her relocation. So she took out a government loan that she obviously had no intention of repaying, and then left. So that's the one respondent that says she got money from government assistance.
That's smart.
Yeah. So that's the general sort of like difficulties that women journalists were facing in relocating. Now, now we move on to talking about how hard it is to work as a journalist in exile. So this is a photo. This was shared with us by Visual Rebellion. They're a small sort of like independent media collective. This shows a women journalist at the border in Mesot wearing all of her IDs around her neck while she's doing her reporting work. This shows she's wearing a CI card, her worker ID. She has a little blue book which shows that this is her, she's allowed to work in Thailand. She has her actual passport, which is likely expired. And the t-shirt she's wearing behind, it says Homeless Power Rangers in Burmese. And you know, I think this reflects the kind of conditions that women journalists have been having to work in since the coup. So one of the main issues we found was that women journalists, when they are working in exile, they had to use their pen name. They didn't receive any bylines when they were doing their work. So basically, when obviously there's a lot of journalists in this room, so you know if you don't have bylines, you have no evidence of you having done this work. So a lot of journalists now, after the coup, have stopped using bylines, have used fake names to do their work, and that means that when they have to move on to another organization, when they have to find other work, there's little proof, or it's more difficult to prove that this is where they had been working, this is the work that they've been doing. This leads to like pretty bad conditions for women journalists. Next. And we talked about what the level of confidence these women journalists had in dealing with the safety risks after they had moved out into exile. Now everyone knows that there's been a lot of like difficult conditions that women journalists are working in. Most journalists say they have low or some confidence in dealing with the safety risks. Very few stated that they were extremely confident in dealing with the risks at working in exile. This means that basically there needs to be more targeted efforts to enhance the security knowledge of journalists in exile. And these statistics aren't just applicable to women journalists, they are for journalists in general. And speaking of like the financial, housing, and legal insecurity that journalists are facing, a third of the journalists that we had surveyed said that they're on a salary that are well below the time minimum wage, and many of them are sole breadwinners for their household. So this is something that we saw in our work as the Exile Hub again and again, where women journalists would be relocating with their whole families, with kids, with parents, trying to rent homes in Thailand with maybe on a 5,000 to 10,000 baht salary. So here we see the average monthly income of a woman journalist living in Thailand is 35% of them responded they earned a monthly income between 5,000 and 10,000 Thai baht. And 15% reported earning less than 5,000 baht per month. That's a pretty unlivable wage in most parts of Thailand. The minimum wage in Thailand, if you calculate a day laborer working 8 hours a day, is around 7,900 baht per month in Mesot and 8,100 baht in Chiang Mai. This means that like professional working journalists working in the field, reporting and working on stories are making less than a day laborer that would be working on a construction site. And indeed, we've seen stories of this. We've had journalists who had been working journalists in Mesot who we were in touch with, who had to take jobs as welders, as carpenters, as waiters, because they couldn't support themselves doing journalistic work. A lot of them continued to do journalistic work unpaid or on their lower salary, but had to take on second jobs or had to take on other jobs to supplement their income. And we asked journalists whether they or their immediate family have any other sources of income, and 72% of women journalists report that they don't have any other source of income besides their current employment, meaning that like what wages they're experiencing now is what their whole family has to live on. And oftentimes, women have an added burden of having to support relatives back home, having to support their parents if they had left them back home. A lot of times when we speak to unmarried, younger male journalists, they don't often have the burden of having to care for elderly parents, having to care for people outside of themselves, whereas women journalists oftentimes have to, we ask them, what are you worried about? What are you concerned about? It's like, oh, the safety of my family doesn't have income, I have to send home to my relatives, I have to send home to my parents so that they can support and they can support themselves. And one of the main issues that journalists face, especially from Myanmar in Thailand, is that they are spending an extortionate amount of money on police extortion. So of the journalists whom we had in our community who don't have visas and necessary documentation, which are 56, so 56 of the journalists we interviewed didn't have any papers. We found that 31% of them spent over 30% of their monthly income on police extortion to avoid arrest and deportation. All these journalists who spent over 30% of their income are located in Tak province along the Thai-Myanmar border. That's huge. If you're making 10,000 baht a month and you're spending a third of that on police extortion, your take-home salary is basically unlivable, counting food expenses, living expenses, etc. And then we saw that for the journalists who don't have documentation, a large amount of them spent about 30. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just did that slide. So the ones who didn't have documentation, the ones who did have visa and documentation, they spent around 10 to 30 to 30 to 50% of their income on visas per year. So there's certain journalists who said 4 people responded they spent over 70% of their annual income on getting a visa to be in Thailand. So the cost of visas vary. They go anything from 10,000 to 15,000 baht for a tourist, for like a cheaper education visa. We know journalists who are spending over 60,000 baht a year on education visas to be legal in Thailand. And these are oftentimes costs that are either only partially covered or not at all covered by media organizations or by their employers. So this is, again, a condition that doesn't just affect women journalists, but Myanmar journalists in exile in general. And then we go back to speaking about specific issues that women journalists were facing. And part of the big problems are gender discrimination and bullying. So, as Annie mentioned, women journalists have conditions that are outside of, that are different than the conditions that the male journalists face. And we wanted to drive that home and sort of like look into that to see what we could find. And so in our focus group discussions, 17 participants highlighted gender harassment and discrimination as predominant safety concerns confronting women journalists in comparison to their male counterparts. This means that it could be general harassment, being treated unfairly, verbal harassment, sexual harassment. These were things that they said that they were experiencing that they didn't see male journalists experiencing as well. Some mentioned a lack of financial support for maternity care, risk of being fired are higher than male journalists. A lot of the women journalists were saying that they were worried that they would be fired first when there were job cuts in a media organization. Women are more likely to be fired than men because of perceptions of what women can do versus what men can do in the workplace. And one woman journalist mentioned that she was expected to complete housework in the safe house that she was living in. And so she's living and working in a safe house with maybe 5-10 other people in a media organization as a full-time staff, and she's expected to do the dishes, clean the floors, clean the toilets, make the beds. It's ridiculous. These are terrible conditions for women to be working in any case. And under these extraordinary circumstances, then more gets piled onto the women when in a living and working situation. And this is actually something that was really difficult for us when we were speaking with women journalists coming across, because they would be in safe houses, and a lot of times they would have the unfair and expectations and burden of fetching tea or making lunch or be expected to cook, be expected to clean, when their male counterparts didn't have such expectations. we saw that only half of women journalists said that their off days are treated equally compared to their male colleagues. 15% said no, others said they were not sure. Meaning that, again, leave days are not treated the same for women journalists and men. And there was a gender-based pay disparity between, many people said that they were either neutral or disagreed that there was a gender-based pay disparity between women and men journalists. There was only 7% of journalists that said they believed there was a pay disparity, and our team was kind of like, oh, this seems like a great statistic, like, oh, there's equal pay in the media space. But then when you look at how much journalists are being paid in general, 7,000 to 10,000 baht, 5,000 to 10,000 baht per month, it's really difficult to have gender pay when everyone's being paid really rock bottom wages. Like, how can you have a pay disparity when everyone's being paid the bare minimum? So I'm not sure how relevant the statistic is for seeing whether there is equality in the workplace, because, again, male journalists are also being paid really poorly because of the working conditions of journalists in general. And then we go to sort of the policy-based issues that media houses have. And we saw that like over 40% of journalists say that their current or most recent media houses do not have a workplace harassment policy, whereas 43% of them said they were unsure whether there's a workplace harassment policy. In our mind, in our research, what we see, unsure and no means that they don't know, which means that they might as well not have one. If women don't know that there's a workplace harassment policy, then they can't use it and they can't utilize it. So this sounds like there's 80% of women or 80% of workplaces don't have any kind of workable harassment policy for dealing with gender discrimination and gender-based bullying in the workplace. And then when we look at media organizations to see whether they had an HR or human resources policy, 43% of them said yes, 43% said they were unsure, only 13% said no. So this was kind of like interesting because we also interviewed a lot of media house owners and interviewed media development organizations who were working with media organizations, and they all said, of course they have workplace policies. And when we really dug through it, we found that like all the policies were in English. They weren't translated into Burmese, so journalists couldn't access them. Now, 62 out of the 79 journalists reported poor mental health and poor mental well-being. Many reported emotional burdens or distress affecting them, and many reported cultural differences and discrimination as a matter of concern. In the focus group discussions, many journalists mentioned that their mental health will improve when their material conditions improve. If we move on to the next slide, we can see that like this is measuring what the journalists are going through with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what is mapped inside the triangle are the concerns that journalists had for their own safety and like how they could feel safe. And we see that they were feeling unsafe all the way from the very base of like income, food and shelter, all the way to having any kind of job security, having any kind of sense of achievement, all the way through to self-fulfillment. So these were sort of like multi-layered problems that women journalists were facing in exile that showed that their needs are not being met in every single level. So we had we did have interview findings. We can sort of like gloss over this. If you guys want, you can learn more about this if you read the paper. Basically, a lot of problems, issues of gender equality and sensitivity have taken a backseat since the coup, and there's been backslides in gender equality and representation in the newsrooms. And even though there are HR policies, they're not translated, they're not being transmitted, and donors are facing funding cuts from back donors, which means that like media organizations are being underfunded, and a lot of times what goes first are these what people consider extraneous support, such as maternity support or specific gendered support for women journalists. So to conclude, I think this sustained support of the media ecosystem and of women journalists is vital to having a free and open society in Myanmar. We have recommendations for funders, for media organizations, and for anyone else who's interested in supporting and helping out women journalists. I won't go through these in details since we're short on time, but all of these are available in the report. So if you guys want to push on through and download the report at the end of this presentation, then we'll be happy to share it all. Yeah, yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, it was a very data-heavy set of information, but to be honest, I thought it was important to share the data because this is what people are going through right now, and that this is what women journalists are facing on a day-to-day basis, and we want to make sure that people understand that like the problems right now are systemic, and that if we don't address some of the root issues, for example, like just literally people don't have material resources. So if we can give people the resources they need, then they can do their jobs properly.
Thanks so much, Evelyn. Yuka, we'll come back to more discussion on those excellent findings. I think I should add, I don't think anyone has attempted this kind of exhaustive research with like basically 80 women journalists in exile since the coup. So it's very valuable. Also, it has to be said for the broader exile journalist community, many of those issues, of course, apply to all exile journalists, regardless of gender. I want to turn very quickly now online. Kuntam, could we show all our online participants for a moment and bring on Sue Myat, who is actually a rare example of a chief editor of, there's not that many, of a chief editor of an sizable, significant Myanmar independent organisation, Tan Win Ket, which runs, I must say, one of the only Myanmar media organisations to also run daily both business news bulletins as well as general news online, streaming TV as well as print reporting, and very committed to training as well. So Sue Myat, over to you. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about your perspectives.
Thank you. So can you hear me well?
Yeah, that sounds not so good. So I'm not sure if the microphone, maybe you should be closer or further away. I'm not sure. Try.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
Anyway.
is it okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, yes. Thank you, everyone. So thanks for giving a chance to join this special day. So for me, I would like to share some of experience. So as a female journalist, so there are a lot of challenges as a female journalist, as everyone said today. So they are almost the same. So I started my female journalist life since 2004, and this month is my 20 years anniversary of journalist life. So I had experience with two regions of military dictatorship. Since I started working as a journalist since 2004,
Maybe, sorry, Sue Myat, can you maybe bring your microphone a bit closer? I think it's not such a great sound. I don't know, can people hear that clearly or no? Okay, there's a bit of an issue. Maybe you could, try that.
Okay.
That's
now
much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. So
start again. Maybe recap what you just said.
Okay. So let me start. So thanks for giving a chance to join this special day. So today I would like to share my female journalist life. So as a Myanmar female journalist, so not only Myanmar, so but also I think from the war. So there are a lot of challenges, as everyone said today. So they are almost the same. So I started so my female journalist life since 2004, and this month is my 30 years anniversary of journalist life. So I had experience with two regions.
I think you've gone quiet again. You were good for a minute. Try again. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now is this okay? Sorry. Can let me give a chance to.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, now is this okay?
Yes. Yes.
Apologies for technical error.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, yeah. So as I had experience with two regions of military dictatorship, So since I started working as a journalist since 2004, it was also during the time of the first gender. So there were a few women journalists. So because if we are a woman, so the media house owner worried about the safety issue, and so they think if so, for example, so the women journalists have traveled for the free trade, so they think they need to add one more person. So if they do like them, so they need to expand more. So that's why. So they would like to assign the women journalists in this period. So this is the situation. So to let the women journalists in this period. So that's why the media owner they didn't want to appoint the women journalists at the time. So we had proved a lot so that the female journalists can do the same thing as male journalists, and also I had to prove that women can go to the place. So if so something like this, so there were natural disasters, so like a Nagi cyclone one time. So at that time, so in my experience, our media house owner, our chief editor, so assigned to other male journalists, so instead of me. So this is really okay. Now is this okay?
It's okay. Let's just carry on. I, I think you were at your best when you didn't have the cable on. Does everyone agree? Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah, that's better. Keep going.
okay. So I missed that. So that's why we have proved a lot so that the women journalists can work so at the same thing with the male journalists. So for a long time. So not only that time, so but also in big situation. So it is also we had tried a lot. So for example, if the like the reports needs to go to the jungle, also to the PDFs. So the media house owners, so they don't want to assign the women journalists so because of the safety issue. So this is also the real situation in, currently. So that so I in media our media house, so there are over 50% of women journalists, and so we have to think about that so very carefully. So but our journalists, our female journalists, so they can do so at the same thing. So as even in a difficult situation. So this is like what the media house owner think about women journalists, and also in the reporting process. So like in this current situation, so the women journalists are faced with the like a sexual or verbal harassment from military side, and also from some of the PDFs. So some of the military or the PDFs, so they send the message personally. So like to be the relationship with them. So it is a very big challenge. So for the female journalists, so as sexual harassment like that. So and also now I'm based in Mesa now. So I have moved to here so because of the armed conflict in Lake Echo, Korean state. So since 2021. So during we stay here, so not only me, but also other Myanmar women journalists have been still in a same safe house, like due to the security situation at the border. So it has been like more than 2 years now. So as we have to share a same building, so sometimes we have to share the same building with the men. So because of that, so for some female journalists, so they do not feel safe mentally. So another thing is that in Mesa, so the Thai police used to check and arrest the Myanmar people so several times. So it is not just women, there are also men being arrested. But what makes women feel special? So according to one of my female journalists' experience, she was called to the police station, although she had a that. So we get primarily so when we applied for labor cut. So while she was at police station, the police and the time to Myanmar translator told her the question so status, are you married? So she answered honestly that she is single. So that the translator and police said that, hey, you are like married woman. So such kind of talk is like the body shaming and also sexual abuse was. So as the consequence, so although she was freed because she did not commit any crime, she felt psychological insecurity in the mind of this female journalist. So looking at this, so I would like to specifically share that female
Sorry,
journalists.
I think you have to speak up or be a bit clearer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now is this okay?
Sort of.
Yeah. So that's why. So I would like to share today that so our women journalists so we physically and mental insecurity in our daily lives. So not just in news production process and but also so yes in the daily security. So that is the problem in this state. So thank you so much, and also apologies for technical error from my side.
Oh, no, thank you. Thanks, Sumyat. We know you're dealing sometimes with issues of connectivity, and maybe the club system is not so compatible as well. But I think most of us got most of what you were saying. And I do recommend to people, even if you don't speak Burmese, to if you don't read it or understand it, but it's impressive to look at Tanwin Ket's website and TV news offerings. So now I'd like to turn to Shun Naing, who is working with Reuters and covering Myanmar issues. So Shun, and I think came out shortly after the coup, right? Anyway, you can...
Yeah. Hello, my name is Shunai, and I'm currently working for Reuters News Agency. And I came out of Myanmar like 2 months after the coup, so have been then since until now. So many of you guys might not understand what Sumya was saying, but what she was basically explaining how she experienced at the police station, where she got asked, like, the first question the police asked was like, are you single? Are you married? You know, these kind of things that we women journalists normally face when we talk to our sources or when we reach out to the government authorities and etc. Like the gender discrimination among Myanmar community is still very bad. Although like times have changed, but still like it still hasn't improved significantly yet. So when Sumya mentioned she started working in 2004, just being a woman was difficult enough to get a job in journalism, in media houses. But like by the time when I became a journalist, it's improved a little bit. But now, when you see women journalists in media houses, they are mostly like presenters or news writers. They are not in like decision-making roles. And then when we complain about that more and more, then they started giving jobs to women journalists in managing position like vice editor-in-chief or copy editor. So these women still need permission from a male superior to conduct her work. So it's still, and it might look like things have improved on papers or in statistics, but in reality, there is still like male men journalists who are making the final decisions and who are saying like, yes, you can go to this trip, or yes, you can not go to this trip, something like that. So in my experience as a journalist as well, when I was working for the local media outlet, I myself has experienced that I'm not allowed to go to this reporting trip because you are a woman and this will cause you more risks. So that my editor assigned to like another male journalist to go to the trip. And the same thing is still happening in media houses right now at this current time as well. So, and when you see, when I was talking about these presenters' roles, when you see about these political opinions, talk shows hosted by the media houses, it's men talking each other. So women are given in the rooms where they need to ask questions to the moderators, to the speakers. Oh yeah, there is a woman, but then that is a moderator, not really as someone who is speaking out of opinions, things like that. And that is like the basic of like the discrimination actually. If you go down like just like as I had deep dive into the harassment, there's much more from the report. You can see like how women are sexually harassed not only by the outsiders but also within the media houses, and all types of harassment they are experiencing. From the pay variances, and I noticed, like you said, because all the journalists were getting very low pay, so it's quite difficult to have a pay difference, right? But still, actually, there is still a pay difference. There is a pretty much 4,000 baht, 5,000 baht pay difference between women and men journalists generally, and even now, like although both of them, both men and women journalists are getting very low pay, and so now, like when women are given in the position of the managing editor or something, then it's their husbands are founders. So I don't. It's like no disrespect to others. I just want to point out like there should be more women in decision-making role, not on paper managing position. So that there is still much room for the improvement in Myanmar media houses. Yeah, so that's it for me right now, but if you guys have any more questions, I will be happy to answer later.
Thanks very much, and we will probably have time for a few questions at the end, which is fairly soon. I'd like to turn to you, Kintanda, to talk a little bit about your perspective and what you're doing. And again, maybe you also came from inside Myanmar after the coup, right?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Tana. I'm the Southeast Asia Director for WANIFRA Women in News. I'm sure you all, or most of you all know what WANIFRA is. Before I dive into a little bit more in what we do, I just would like to say congratulations to Exile Hub. I know how hard they've been working on this comprehensive report and to wrap it up in almost 2 years. Because I was also part of the focus group discussion as well. Back to me. Before I joined WANIFRA Women in News in 2021, literally when the coup started, I was working with Frontier Myanmar, Mizima, and then also Myanmar Time. But mainly, I was leading the commercial team. I am one of the person who was making money. But somehow I was in the list to be arrested, so ended fleeing the country in 2021 October. As a woman in news, as WANIFRA is the World Association of Newspaper, and it's a global organization. It's been in the industry for more than 72 years. WANIFRA's main strategy and also the mission that we're trying to reach is to promote the rights of journalism and then also freedom, and then also, last but not least, media sustainability. So under WANIFRA, we have a subsidized programs called Women in News, and then we also have Press Freedom Committee. So as in Women in News, of course, aligning with WANIFRA strategies, we are trying to reach 3 main goals, which is gender balance in industry, raising the gender balance bar in industry, and then also gender balance in reporting, aka content, and then also business sustainability. So in order to do that, we partner with media organizations across 3 regions, which is Southeast Asia, Arab region, and Africa region. In 18 countries, now we've been collaborating with 229 partners across 3 regions. So throughout our program, actually focusing on gender balance in industry and content, we develop our flagship program called Leadership Accelerator Program, that we focus only on the women in the media industry, with the aim to raise the women voices in the leadership positions. Like all of our speakers has been mentioned, that when we look at the existence of the woman in the male dominance industry, 50-50. But when we narrow it down to leadership position, for example, editor-in-chief, senior editor, worse, CEO, talking about chairman, 0. So that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to promote women voices in the leadership position, and that program we crafted really, really well, and then we've been running this program for now 13 years, and it's one of the most successful program. It's because we structure it in a way focusing on the coaching session with international certified coaches, and then also leadership skills development component, and then also newsroom management. It's a very long program, so we deliver it only once a year. It's a 9 months long in Africa region because we accept sort of like over 100 participants every year. And then for Southeast Asia, up to 40, 50 participants a year. And the reason why, because it's successful, is the coaching session are well crafted. We deliver 1 hour, 5 coaching session to our participants, starting from figuring out who they really are, what they really want, deep inside out, and then what they want to do. So out of these 5 hours coaching session, the outcome that we expected is 3 to 5 years career roadmap development. So it's like, it's unblock your thinking, unblock your strategy in life, and then also in professional. So that is the main component of that program. And of course, we tackle on mental health, emotional intelligence, and then also safety, sexual harassment management, and gender balance in content, and then also gender balance in industry training. So that's a lot of, we were expecting almost 100 hours out of 9 months. So in Myanmar, we collaborated with IMS and FOYO to roll out this program since 2022, and it's been very successful program, even for IMS FOYO as well. It's 70% success, 30% because they moved to third country and they couldn't continue the program. So the main challenges we face, and then also they appreciate the program, is the first one, mental health, the second, emotional intelligence, and third, coaching. Because like everybody said, mental health has been one of the top challenges in order to lead the organization or lead the team, and then as well as lead the family on the other side in parallel. So, and then also, of course, emotional intelligence, that really helped them to unlock the thinking of the most significant thing that really also shocked us is they don't know they are a leader. Because when we mentioned that, oh, you are a leader, so you have to, this is what leader do, and this is what manager do. And they said, we are none. I'm like, no, you are a leader. He said, no, we are not. We are just an editor. So this is something that is really shocking because they don't really consider themselves as a leader. But the different things, if you ask that question to a guy or a male editor, they would say, hell yeah, I am the leader. So this is a big difference. I'm so sorry. No discriminations. But this is sort of thing that we challenge. And after the program, 6 months, 9 months program, they said that really helped them to form themselves in a different person, in a better person, better version, to deal with the editors who are above them, how to fight back the harassment in a way, salary, work, conversation, and then also like this gesture and all that thing. So they know how to respond to those harassment. And then at the same time, they know how to compartmentalize their emotions when they are really high up in the pressure and then also stress. So these are our winnings. And of course, if we continue talking about the challenges, I think everybody has already covered. So I would just stop here. And our program is delivering to not only the national media, but also to, like Manam Pogi said, we're delivering to ethnic media as well. So 16 participants last year from 14 media houses inside and outside. So yeah, if you would like to more talk about this program, if you want to collaborate, we're here. And I'll just stop here because of the time.
Thank you. We will have more discussion, but also I think all the panelists will be around afterwards. If you're interested in a specific program or project, I think they'd be happy to answer questions. Last but not least, we're turning to Tinza Ong. Are you there, Tinza? Okay. So you're going to share some insights from Myanmar Women in Media. So over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Guan, and also thank you giving me this chance. The specialty international.
Okay, sorry
so
again. Could you try it without the earphones? Let's just see if it's going to be a bit clearer.
Okay. Can you hear me very well?
I think that might be a bit clearer. Is it? Do people feel? Can you speak? Just speak.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. I think that's better.
Okay. Thank you, Guan. Yeah. Thank you, and thank you giving me the chance as the special day is International Women Day. It's Happy International Women Day, and thank you all the participation that is the panels and also in the medium round and FCCT. Yeah. So I think the Yuka already mentioned a lot of the findings of the Exile Hub survey research, and also the mentions Mashona and also the Makindana as well, and Masumiawi as well. But also I would like to mention the kind of the difficulties of the women journalists, especially after the military coup in Myanmar 2021. It's as mentioned the other panelists, a lot of difficulties the women are facing during these days. And also for me just brief introductions. I'm a journalist and writers and also the media trainers. And now I'm starting with a new very set up organization. It is called Myanmar Women in Media. We call it MWIM. So it is very new one. And also we are conducting the research. It is quite different Asian Health research. So our research is mainly focused on the three main areas. One is gender-based violence, and then second one is gender-based discrimination, and third one is the sexual harassment in the newsroom and also the workplace, especially after the military coup in Myanmar. Especially that we based in Exile media, and also it's we are listening the journalists who are inside. So based on these research, I would like to share these research findings, but actually it is not a formal launch. It's we are dissemination today, but we can do in finish in times. So some findings also we already have these other research and surveys. So mostly it's repeatedly what our panelists said is the pay gap. Pay gap is is not for me this is just personally, not intentionally pay gap, and then it's the different roles, because most of the men journalists are the senior roles, and also they are sitting on the leadership level on the CEO and also the chief editor. So they are is obviously their pay and their salary is much more higher than women journalists. Women journalists is mostly editor, and not very much editor-in-chief Isaac Masumiawe and Manam Poge. And Makindana mentioned that most of the women's journalists are the level is editor level. So it's it's totally pay gap between the man and woman or journalists. That is one thing. And also I would like to repeat what Mashona said is most women are the presenters. And also this we are interesting the things the research finding is the media owner and also the chief editor, they are thinking the protections for the women journalists not to go to the field reporting, especially for the the conflicts area. Oh, women should not go to the field reporting because it is the protection for you. But yeah, most of the women like they show their faces on screens every day as a presenters. That is also like very challenging, and it is also they are is raising their security because it's like like the sex. As I see, like always watching the all TVs. So most of the presenters are women. Most of their parents, their family members are inside. That is also really the security concern for the women journalists and women media profession. By the way, our group is not only focused on the women journalists, but also we are including the women media profession. So mostly we call it media profession is like the who are working for the media work. Because we are thinking it's like today is like the multimedia, not only enough for the women journalists. That's also we are thinking about the also women media profession, and also we are thinking like the kind of like the collective the voices and then collective power. So if we are stand alone, if we are nothing, it's sure. So if we have like the collective voices, is like it's something that's I'm tracks for the women leadership and also the women collective voice. So these kinds are the challenges for the women, and also like the like already mentioned is like equal opportunity to conduct in the field reportings, and also the kind of like the sexual harassment cases is a lot happening, especially in like the male and also the inside as well. So like for example, I would like to give like one or two example inside and outside sexual harassment cases. So like the insights is that most of the women journalists they are keeping low profile without mentioning they are journalists, and sometimes they are going to the conflict area like Karenni, like Anya, and like like the Central Bahamas, and but later in this area they definitely have to go to the checkpoints, might be like the ICC checkpoint, and then others armed forces group are the checkpoints, but just and they pass these checkpoints. Like one of the woman journalist experience like that she faced at the checkpoint. So it's like the soldier is like is the ICC soldiers. It's like they want to fight on her bodies, and also they tax every like the private batch at the checkpoints, even in front of the many people, and also after that like, and then they bring her to the private rooms, and then we have to find you at the private room because like definitely you may hide something in your body. So that is just kind of ridiculous, right? But like the women are facing the kind of these sexual harassment case and the conflict area. This is like inside women journalists facing, and also the outside. Outside mean like the much more difficulty in like male south, the in the border areas. So like we think about like the most of the journalists are based in Mesa and also the Chiang Mai. But Mesa is much more difficulty, I'm sure, because like the Masumia we already mentioned about the sexual harassment case and the unwanted touching, unwanted, like the strains the body by the time police. So also we found that these are the finding on our research. So, and not only this, but also like the sexual harassment came from the soldiers. The soldiers mean like that it might be from like the ICC, the sites, and that might be from the armed forces groups, from the revolution sites. So like this is they now most of the journalists are both men and women. They contact us the via the messenger app like Signal, like WhatsApp. But if like some soldiers they got the numbers of other or WhatsApp or Signal, whatever they got, sometimes they send a message at night, very late night. They send a message, and like the very like kind of like attempt for the just kind of the sexual harassment. So okay, yeah, thank you. So like this kind of like the sexual harassment phase, and also like gender-based discrimination and the gender-based violence the women are facing these days. And then one thing I would like to mention is it the no mechanism at all. So sexual harassment is not came from the outside. Sexual harassment also in the newsrooms, but like the no mechanism at all. So this is it's really the difficult. And then how can we set up the formal mechanisms at during this time, the crisis time? So mainly are undocumented, like Masumia would mention, and also the based in on the outside of Myanmar. So where is the law enforcement? So that is really other challenges. So maybe I have some more point, but it's like that the time is out of time. So thank you, Gwen. If you have other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks very much, Tin Zarong. I think some of your reports for Myanmar Women in Media have also been sent around, right? I've seen a couple on the web or social media, maybe.
They have done great work
Yeah.
on Myanmar women in prison.
Right.
Their reports they have been publishing from 2021, 2022 and 2023, which are available in English and Burmese languages, both.
Right. Thank you. And
But this is a new one. Like we will disseminate during this month.
sorry, a new report, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're writing a new report now specifically on instances of sexual harassment of women journalists in the newsroom.
And the previous report was women in prison, or I think there was something else on women in media.
Yeah, the previous one is like the women in under the prisons. Yeah, especially for these detained women journalists. What is the difficulties of the detained women journalists, and also their family members' difficulties.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that on your website or on just you can find it on Facebook or social
We can
media?
share,
I
but
think?
like we have not published because just kind of partially share.
Right.
It's because
I
of such
think if you do a
circumstances.
search on Facebook or something, it's definitely been posted somewhere.
It's there, and also one thing I would like to point out that if you see like RSF's report about the journalists in prison, all the data about Myanmar has been fed by our local journalists and local networks.
Right.
They're not being mentioned, they're not being given any credits, but these are the journalists on the ground who work every day to feed
Right.
the data to bigger organizations.
Okay, that's Reporters Sans Frontier, right, the RSF. Okay, thank you very much. And with that, if anyone has a question for any of our panelists, we can take a couple of questions. Otherwise, I have one I'd like to ask, but I'm willing to hand the mic over to anyone who might want to follow up on anything here. Okay, I would just like to ask a final question to you all, which is you've effectively, I think we've heard some of the key issues, barriers, obstacles, problems, and also some of you have come up, suggested solutions like mechanisms like Tin Zarong or your report, Exile Hub, was very effective in pointing out the issues, but actually I would like to know what each of you think would be the most effective next step and what should the priority be given how many problems or issues there are. So would you like to start that, Yuka, since you it led the report, but we've got a few of you involved in the report?
Yeah, actually, it's been great to have everyone on this panel because, you know, Mashun, Makintana, Matinzar, they all participated in various levels in the research as co-authors, co-researchers, and as focus group participants. And, you know, they've been really invaluable in sort of the recommendations that we've made in the paper. So, you know, I wanted to keep that a little bit of a surprise. Like, you know, maybe you can read the
come
paper.
On. Yeah, I think you can give it hint. Okay, so say the top, you know, the next step sort of thing.
I honestly think that like the state of media, like for in Myanmar, it's not viable right now. Like the way that media is being run and the way that the funding.
Well, do you mean Exile media
Exile
outside,
media,
right?
yes,
Not
exactly.
inside.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, state media is doing fine, but independent exile media isn't doing well. Like, and a lot of times media organizations, when we went around doing these interviews, we found that media organizations were heavily reliant on donor funding to get going, which ends in like random cycles, you know, like sometimes you have an 18-month cycle and then a 3-month gap, and then someone's supposed to sustain their business off of this. Media organizations aren't able to monetize very well right now. You know, Makinda and you guys are helping media organizations monetization on some level, but even the ones who are able to get an income aren't able to sustain the level and quality of reporting on simply income alone. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make, one thing is that like, it's 3 levels, right? On the one hand, what is the commitment of media organizations in promoting gender parity and gender equality? Like media houses and organizations, if they cannot even have HR and gender policies in place within their own institutions, you know, is there a commitment there to gender equality in media houses? That's the first step.
But are you saying you think that's one of the priority issues?
Yes, definitely, yes. And the second thing is like women journalists themselves are, I'm really lucky to know many women journalists who are able to and willing to advocate for each other, but is that enough? Like, is that enough? Are there enough women journalist voices that can come out and push against this machine, like this systemic machine that we're all facing up against? And then the third level is that, like, you know, when other institutions say nominally that they're supporting media, how far does that extend? Does that extend to women journalists? Does that extend to having gender equality and parity in the workplace for journalists? Does that extend to, you know, equality in terms of reporting? And if there is such a commitment, then, you know, is there a way that these organizations can agree to, promise to, pledge to dedicate resources, media organizations, donors, embassies, whatever, pledge to donate and to provide specific support for women journalists?
And
like,
could I also ask, do you actually think there are, I'd like to know what any of you thought, there are too many Myanmar independent media organisations?
I don't think so.
And there's a cannibalisation element of going for this shrinking pool of funds.
I think
Sorry, I had to throw that out.
I think there's never enough support, and there's never enough, you know, media houses. Particularly, you know, when it comes to conflict or crisis situations, we need more voices. And even if it's 5 people or 2 people, like I've seen Thanlun Quet growing after the coup. There were 2 to 4 people, and how they grew, it's like tremendous stories. Their journey is great. People keep on saying that spaces are shrinking. I look at it as there are bigger spaces for us, even in conflict and even in exile. Coming back to your other question about, you know, women journalists and what women can do and what we think can be done, I think patriarchy, it's not going to end in a day. So what we can do is, it's a long journey. It's not only Myanmar's issue. And what I talked earlier about it was I was working in Europe, 15 years ago, when all the discrimination happened. What we need to do is to see that why women in your newsrooms, we hire young women for their face value, that they can become presenters, they can look good. So what we start doing is, it's like my journey. In my 30s, I stopped looking good, stopped looking feminine. I started wearing pants and jackets and stopped wearing lipsticks, tying my hair to look more, you know, neutral, so I don't get attention from my sources, from my editors, even from a cleaner or a tea shop, you know, guy within the, you know, newsroom. Because women, we have to stay for longer hours. There's sometimes you're alone. And when woman is alone, it's not even a class thing as well. Even someone who is working in the kitchen would come and harass you. So that things need to stop. We need to start thinking in our newsrooms. All of us coming back to Myanmar, we all are donors, funders, supporting. Have we ever asked ourselves the question, when we go for meetings, we are just speaking with older men. Start investing in younger women. And thank you. It's and I see some, you know, men as well clapping for it, but you need to, next time if you go for any meeting, any money, even €1 you're giving, please, please, if we won't change this systematic thing, give power to younger women and younger new generation Gen Zs. They have better ideas. They would come up with better, solutions for all us. We have been pumping money, and we would continue to, pump money into Myanmar media, but that's not the solution, because these oldies will keep on bringing the same old solutions, traditional. We have to, stop that and give, I think, power to women, because they're more empathetic, more reasonable. They know how to run things. So we need to, give more, whatever project next you bring or any idea, just blatantly say it. I want a woman, they will say, okay, it's not possible. No, invest. And what I say is, what their IFRA program, I really like it, because many times in this research as well, you have seen women do not even know when they are harassed. It's very difficult when you're younger. It's easy for these men to, bait them and convince them you're not enough. Your voice is not good, your English is not good, you don't write good Myanmar, and they crush you in your early, career, so they don't get longer. Their lifespan of a journalist, how many women journalists we see in 30s or 40s? We all started running our organizations or get into some other field because we need to find balance in our lives.
Thanks, Annie. I think I can safely say that Exile Hub has already shown itself to be one of the more creative donors and support organisations. Things like the first media safe houses that are women only, LGBT friendly policies, and also very supportive of women. So there is definitely something to incorporating Gen Z as well as a few older people, perhaps. One IFRA, I agree too.
I think we have all. We have boomers, I'm millennial, we have Gen Zs.
Yeah,
and
over the hill 40-year-olds, for example. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Okay, we have one question over there, and then I think we'll close this off.
I'm going to be quick. Hi. I'd just like to add to what Annie said. I think the point is to make put the focus on diversity instead of focusing on like Gen Z or any particular generation, because we're all going to be over the hill soon. But just very quickly, about the findings from the Exile Hub report. Have you actually shared these with the owners of the media houses, and what has their response been like?
Yeah, actually, thanks for asking that. So yes, we did share it with all the media houses who were interviewed, who were part of the process, who were in our community. We did a launch in Chiang Mai, a small launch, was it 2 weeks ago? It was 2 weeks ago, where we invited only journalists, media houses, and media support organizations to come and attend. So this is a larger sort of group. Thank you, Gwen, for helping us organize this. But we had a smaller closed-door conversation where we did bring up these issues and had discussions all together about how we can come up with solutions for this. And I think that this is a discursive process. It's not, we publish a report, follow these recommendations, you're going to be fine. That's not the case. I think we all need to keep thinking about it, working on it, and dedicating energy, power, and resources to actually combating these issues. So we have had some responses from media houses, some of whom were, they're very happy that this report came out. Others, we would like to follow up with some more. And if you guys know any media organizations who would benefit from seeing this report, please feel free to pass it around.
Were any of them surprised or defensive or?
Yeah. Maybe you want to remind. You're saying that participating in the report were 10 major Myanmar media houses, right?
There were 5 major media houses and 5 support organizations that were working in the media space.
But the journalists you interviewed were beyond just those 5.
Yes, correct. Yeah, 32 media houses were represented in the journalists whom we interviewed.
Right. So, in answer to Hui Yi's question, responses.
I'm off
track
now.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what were the responses like? Were they defensive, or were they supportive, or were they willing to put in money to look into the issue?
There was one media house owner who turned up to the report launch in person, 2 media houses which then published news stories after the launch as follow-ups, news reports. And there's only a couple we haven't heard from yet, but generally it's been very positive. I don't think this report is meant to like attack any organization or point out any flaws. It's to show sort of like what are the systemic issues that are going on. Some areas people didn't even know was happening. Like with the HR policy manual, we then went back and looked at our HR policy manual, like, oh crap, our policies are in English too. So we're revising those right now. Like we're getting our HR policies translated as an organization. But these are sort of like basic labor rights issues as well that unfortunately in the media space aren't talked about. Like journalists are workers and workers have rights. And so, this is a rights issue. It's not just a women's issue. It's not just a sponsor issue. It's not a donor issue. It's a rights issue.
Thank you. And Sean, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Can I just answer to your two questions, like the questions of whether there are enough media houses right now? So what has been happening in Myanmar? I don't think all the media houses combined, we couldn't cover 50% of what is happening on the ground. So because lack of verification, lack of resources and everything, so I don't think like there's like enough media houses, too many media houses. We still need lots of more credible media houses. And also for another question where like what should be the next important thing to do, I strongly want to encourage like there should be like a protective mechanisms for the young, or not young, like female journalists to when they come out and say that they've been harassed. Because like recently there were a couple of young women journalists, they came out and said like they've been harassed, but then they got shut down by their own employers and also counter-attacked by the community as well. So as it happened, like more women journalists don't want to come out and tell about this harassment anymore because there isn't. It's not only that there isn't protective mechanism, but also like the community even blame them for coming out and saying that. So that is a very important thing. I believe that we should have like this protection on the women journalists who want to come out.
Thanks very much. Sean, yes, Tanda?
I just want to add some more points to your...
Okay.
Hi.
Can I add something? Look, we all are not comfortable with mics. That means we are not being invited to enough panels to be trained.
So I just want to add some points to your first question, what will be the immediate steps? I would like to point out three. One is how are we going to help the media organization in a way that not depending on the funding 110%, being more innovative, and then also being more creative in terms of finding the alternative revenue resources, which there are some examples that they have successfully done, which is collaborating with MDIF, PSA, public service announcement, and they have to act like they're the media agency. They have to pitch to MDIF. They win the funding, they got the prize, and then it's like 6 months long, 10 months long. So these sort of different approach to the media business strategy is much needed. The second point is the incentivize, the one that you mentioned in your report as well, to the media organization to come up with the policies. The policy is the big word. So when they hear policy, they're like, So we always approach from the small steps. Let's say, okay, why don't you start with the guidelines? Maybe 5 guidelines that you can add in your editorial guideline, or you can have it as a standalone, focusing on the sexual harassment or focusing on the gender balance separately, of course. So that is the true thing. And also looking at from the donor side, if we can sort of like set the bar in the donor calling, whatever the funding callings, that like the gender balance guideline is a must, is a mandatory in the organization that actually is implementing. It's the one thing that we can do and promote to have this policy in-house. And the third one is this. I'm not really sure whether it's possible, but I really want to initiate it. It's like coming all of the media development organization together, because right now we are also fighting with the funding cuts. Some of us are 40% cut, some of us are 60% cut. which is a big impact to our media organization and media. Because the consideration is, first thing, Ukraine, second thing, climate, third thing, it's already 3 years. What are you guys doing? I mean, like, we are surviving. We are still in the surviving stage. It's not that, oh, we've been giving you money for 2 years and you're just relying on us. I'm like, yes, because we are relocating. We are in a new place. We are with the new business strategy. So what if we can come up with like sort of a statement or something together to report back to donors and saying this is much needed. I know they're spreading the funding to climate change. I know they're spreading the funding to Ukraine. But we are also here. We are also important. We are also needed. And media play one of the 4 main pillars to build the country, to govern the country. So we are important industry, and that's, I think, what we need to hold our hand together, fight against it.
Thank you. And I think we have one last comment from Tinza Ong. Kuntam, can we put Tinza Ong back on? Tinza? Yep, you're on.
Thank you, Gwen. Yeah. Thank you. It's very, very short. Also, like Makendana already mentioned that something, but like I would like to repeat one thing is like the reporting mechanisms. Even we are in that crisis situation, but definitely we may need the kind of like the multiple reporting mechanism for the sexual harassment case, especially sexual harassment case. I would like to repeat on that. And the kind of like this reporting mechanism might be not directly law enforcement by the authority, might be like the community or independent bodies or third party independent body for this reporting mechanism, especially for sexual harassment. And also the kind of like the created like the community support. So otherwise like the women's are like the facing sexual harassment case, this is the kind of hopeless situations, and also like they can fight back because like they are worried about like they will be the jobless. That is like the main the concern for the women journalists. That's why like we need the created the community also support mechanism as well. And also the one thing is like the policy, so gender policy and sexual harassment policy in the newsroom. But most of the media organizations think about this is time for the revolution. Time for the revolution. We don't need. We have no time to think about the kind of these policy as well. But definitely we have to do the kind of these like the policy in the newsroom, sexual harassment policies or the gender policy. Those also, that's why I'm really the push to the IBCMs, newly founded IBCM, like for the mechanism. Might be the IBCM, the one of the organization like that can do the kind of these mechanisms. So we need these mechanisms for sexual harassment urgently. So that's why I would like to repeat on that.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I think I'd like to thank everybody. Our panelists and all of you for coming, and please support the club, please support Myanmar women journalists and Myanmar in general, and keep an eye on our website and Facebook. So thank you very much. I just want to thank also our audio-visual maestro Kuntam, who was really kind of balancing a lot of Zoom things going on there, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen.
Yeah, without your support, we would not have been here.
Yeah.
Who has 15? Who has I?